You're listening to Crackin' Mum Maths, where we try and crack that sweet spot of balancing the giant mental load of mum stuff with keeping a sliver of space for your finances. Bianca, hit us with the boring bits, please.
You are listening to Cracking Mum Maths. This podcast does not take into consideration your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information provided and the nature of the relevant financial product, having regard to your objectives, financial situation, and needs. And today we're talking all things budgeting. Now that you've set your goals, how do we start to work towards achieving those goals?
And you said to me that you hate the word budgeting.
I do. I really don't like the word budgeting. It's one of those words that becomes really scary for people. They put their head in the sand. They don't want to know what they're spending. And it's all because we try and set budgets without realistically knowing what we're spending. And then they become really hard to stick to. So no one does them, a bit like diets.
But it's true because if something is too difficult, as humans, we tend to not do it.
We just shy away from it, put our heads in the sand.
We do. And look, I'm not a fan of the word budget either. I work with budgets all the time, but I have never really made a budget for my household.
Probably not unsurprising. We get plenty of people who come in and you ask them, how much are you spending? And they go, no idea. Or you've got others who come in with really good Excel spreadsheets. They're the interesting ones.
Well, I would love to be an Excel spreadsheet type of client of yours.
Sometimes it's a bit too much. Let's make it simple and easy. Like we said, this is all about making things easy for people. We don't need to go out and create fancy spreadsheets and be experts in all things budgeting. Let's just make it simple with the technology that we now have.
Well, that's true, Bianca. So we've got our map, which hopefully you've all done. You've just jotted down maybe a 3-year plan, maybe a 10-year plan. Maybe you've even just put some notes down of what our 70-year-old selves want to work towards. So how do we then look at that map, Bianca, and work out how much money we have coming in and how much money we have going out? Is that the purpose?
Well, that's pretty much your purpose to start with. So a lot of those goals, realistically, we can't achieve straight away. They'll be probably big goals that we need to take small steps to work towards. And what you need to essentially do is understand, well, what is your income coming in? What are your expenses going out? And do we have a surplus there? Because ultimately, if there is a surplus, great. How do we harness that surplus and use it to our advantage to start achieving some of those goals? But if there isn't, well, what do we need to do about that?
Yes, because I feel like a lot of us, we click that add to cart, PayPal button so easily that there's almost a fear of knowing the answer.
Yeah, there's that sort of wince moment where you go, oh my God, is that transaction actually going to go through or not? And as I said, it is very common. Don't feel like you are the minority, because you're not.
So Bianca, I'm curious to get your thoughts on our map, and now we know roughly what we spend, how we can make sure that we're not making those emotional decisions around finances and that we're looking at both of these things to keep us on track. So, for instance, I mean, I'm actually a bit of a tight ass when it comes to things for myself. Like, I never get my nails done because I just cannot justify the time nor the money. I've not yet had Botox, but everyone around me gets Botox. But for instance, if I decide, right, I cannot stand to look at my forehead on another Zoom call, I want to get Botox. How can I see if it fits into obviously in my map, I want to be 70 years old and wrinkle free, because that's just ridiculous. It doesn't align with my values. How can I make sure that I'm making the right financial decisions and I'm not slipping into that emotional spending?
I think by having those goals written down, it gives you the ability to go back and go, right, so if I went and spent the $500 it is to get my Botox done, by the way, I don't know how much it is.
That's steep. I reckon you're close. I reckon it's around the 300. And don't you have to get it done every 6 weeks or something? I can't.
Can't say I've looked into it that much.
I mean, come back to me in a couple of years, I'm probably full of Botox. But anyway.
if you go back to that map though, you can go, right, so what does spending that 500, 300, whatever the cost is per month, fortnight, quarterly, how does that then affect the goals that we've got in place for us? So if the major goal right now is to build up that buffer, or it is to save enough money for a holiday because we want to take the kids to Disneyland next year, that's on our map, to travel every 2 or 3 years with the kids and give them an experience. How does spending that extra money then take away from the ability for us to do that? So it's really important that you go back to that map and go, right, we need to be saving X amount to be able to achieve this goal. And by spending that extra money, I'm actually taking away from everyone's ability to do that.
Yeah, great. And look, for the record, Bianca and I are surrounded by people with Botox. We have no problem with Botox. As long as it's making people feel great, go for it. As long as you can afford it and it fits into your life plan and your finances, then absolutely go for it.
So if it's a big ticket item like that, I'd be saying go back to your plan, refer to your plan. If it's something little, but it's little and quite frequent or regular, then I might say maybe you need to go back to have a look at those goals and that plan as well. But at the end of the day, those bigger items, let's take the emotion out of I don't want wrinkles on my head and go, well, actually, what's the bigger plan here and what are we trying to achieve?
Absolutely. And if I may offer some advice myself, Bianca, of no financial benefit of all, because I'm not qualified to give any financial advice. Absolutely not. But what I do love sharing is learnings. And I think that our society now is very much driven. We are encouraged to spend because of social media. And I have seen both sides. I spent a lot of time on social media and then I decided to get off social media. And I went 2 years without opening the Instagram app. And what I noticed was, and the biggest learning was that I wanted nothing. There was not a single thing. I didn't shop. I didn't feel the need to buy or that I needed anything. The minute I got back on Instagram or someone showed me something on Instagram or for my job, I had to go on Instagram. I was like, oh, I need that. Oh, I want that. Oh, that looks good. Oh, a bag. Oh, maybe I do want to get my nails done. Those nails look sick. Or like on TikTok when they're like doing their nails and they look so nice. So my advice is if you do find yourself in a deficit or you feel like you're spending too much, try not going off social media altogether, because I know that that is very, very challenging. But ask yourself these questions. Number one, why am I on social media? Because I think you'll find it's either because you're bored, you're tired, or you're trying to distract yourself from something. And number two, ask yourself, do I need that or am I being influenced? Personally, I hate being influenced. I hate being told by an app that I need something. And I shouldn't say this because we are going to need social media, Bianca, for this podcast.
We definitely are.
But I hate thinking that this app has control over me.
It's definitely the art of persuasion. It is marketing at its finest, marketing and advertising. They suck you in and they make you feel like you really need to have that thing. And before you know it, you're clicking pay and it's all now linked to your Google Pay and your Apple Pay. And it's really easy to just spend.
It's so easy. And we don't need all of this stuff.
And the extra pressure that comes with it. Because really, that's all you're doing. All you're doing is it's a short-term gain to make yourself feel good, but long-term, you're putting yourself under more financial pressure.
Yeah, and that's the particularly, we've just had Christmas and that is just a time of buy, and then going, oh shit, that was expensive. So I think, and I do that. I've only recently done a budget and I was terrified. I didn't want to know the answer. I honestly didn't. I was like, what do we actually spend a month? And I was shocked.
Well, you got to remember that people forget about all the little things that they've subscribed to along the way. So they're probably ticket items that you'd want to have a look at. But all the bills are bills. You have to meet them. If you've got a mortgage, you have to meet the mortgage. If you're paying rent, you have to meet the rent expenses. You've got all your utilities, you've got all of your insurances, running of a car. So they're all expenses that you have no choice but to meet. So that's your starting point. Well, what are all those fixed costs that I have to meet on a monthly basis? And then what are all my discretionary costs? So they're all your subscriptions and your coffees and your clothes and hair and beauty, and for kids, spending money on kids, because we all know that they're always running another pair of holes in socks or shoes. So they're all your discretionary items. What am I spending there? And then let's see, do the two align? Is there enough money coming in to meet all those expenses or not?
And you've really touched on something there, Bianca, because I feel like in typical mum maths, it's different to girl maths. Mum maths is, if it's for my kids, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So you'll drop $300 easily. You wouldn't even think twice. You're like, my kids need this. I will buy it immediately. Whereas if it's something for us, we'll deliberate for age. Oh, should I not? I don't know. Do I need it? So I think that's a money pit for me, is just buying stuff for the kids without even thinking twice, because they're my children and I will give them everything, So I think looking at that and childcare, I could not believe. I knew it was expensive, but when you break it down and you look at how much you spend on childcare, it makes me feel sick.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things where you go, if I don't send the kids to childcare, then I can't go to work. So you're in a bit of a conundrum of, am I going to earn enough to go back to work to meet all those fixed costs, which childcare is included in that. So it's one of those things where you can probably go out to all the banks do it nowadays. They all have their own budgeting apps. I'm sure they're called cash flow apps or cash flow monitoring apps. They link straight into your bank account. So your bank account will then feed in the data and it will actually categorize it all for you. So you can see exactly what you're spending in all of those items, or in all of those areas, I should say. So one of those might be that you want to hone in on kids. How much am I spending on the kids? And is there anything there that we can pull back on? Because generally it's the things like coffees and dinners out and the kids. And like I said, the subscriptions to Netflix and Binge and Paramount that all add up. And before you know it, you're spending all of this money that you potentially might be able to do without.
Yes, terrific. And that's something I never look at because I hate logging in to my online banking. I never do it. But I'm changing my ways, aren't I? Because of this podcast. So, all right, we need to clear some time this week, maybe half an hour, maybe we even need an hour this week. Let's go to my favourite segment, which is Delegate or Eliminate. Bianca, what are you delegating or eliminating this week?
This week, I think I'm going to delegate a bit of the dinner making for the evening. My husband and I are finally taking a week off, which is lovely because we don't get to do it together very often. And I've decided he loves a good pizza or a good barbecue, and I'm sure he can fire up that pizza oven and that barbecue and he can start making some dinners for this week.
Imagine just having your dinner made for you every night.
A dinner that the kids will actually eat.
Dinner that kids eat.
Yeah, because you always want something different because you're sick of the same things over and over. But then you realise you make that one exotic meal that you and your husband want or your partner want and the kids don't want to eat it.
They don't eat it. It drives me bananas.
So Nat, what are you going to be eliminating or delegating this week to buy yourself some time?
I have an idea for this week of how to win back some time. So for me, I'm looking at my Tuesday nights because I'm not yet completely burnt out. So I usually pick the kids up and I get home by 5:30, 5:45. Now, I want to make sure that my kids are fed, bathed, the kitchen cleaned, everything done. So when their heads hit the pillow and they're snoring at 8 p.m., I have nap time. And how, you ask, Bianca, how can just one woman do all that before 8 p.m? And I'm going to tell you that I am trying an easy Tuesday night dinner, and it consists of the Hulk pancakes. So I'm going to make pancakes for dinner, which are super easy. I put banana, spinach, zucchini, egg in my blender. I add some flour, I cook pancakes. The kids think it's a dream come true because they're having pancakes for dinner. It takes me 10 minutes to make. There's no mess because it's just the blender and the stove, and I'll eat them as well because it's got my veggies in there. I might throw some extra veggies in for me, and there you go. That's Tuesday night dinner. And then I can have everything cleaned, done, kitchen closed, lights turned off by 8 p.m.
I like it.
Look, I'll link to the recipe. No, I'm joking. I hate it when you finally get the kids to bed and then you walk out and your kitchen's a mess.
Totally.
Or you've got, lunch boxes to unpack and school bags. So for me on a Tuesday night to buy back that time, it's easy dinners. And then I've got half an hour, 45 minutes to log in to my online banking and look at my spending. So here's the homework. Sit down and work out roughly how much you're spending. Write a list, look at it in your online banking. Make it fun if you want to, and make it maybe a guessing game. Like if you're trying to make this enjoyable, if you've got a partner, guess who thinks it's a surplus, who thinks it's a deficit, who is going to get. You could make it a drinking game. No, it's Tuesday night. Absolutely no drinking games on a Tuesday night. Bianca, I also think this is really good to do as a couple because it is nice to know what each of you are spending.
You could definitely make it a discussion between you and your partner, but also let's remember to take the judgment out of it. So at this point in time, you're both very naive on where you're spending money. So there's no judgment needed on what's being spent or why. It's an understanding of, well, overall, can we continue to spend like this? And if we can, that's fine. But if we can't, then let's sit down and work out where we can cut back. So we don't want to be tit for tat. Why are you spending money there? I don't spend that money. Why are you spending it over here instead of over there? It's just let's sit down and analyze the data for what it is, and then let's move forward with a plan on what we're going to do to either rectify the problem and find a bit more of a surplus, or keep going the way we're going. And you might still want to pull back because you might want to make that surplus even bigger because you need to make that surplus bigger to make that goal achievable.
Now, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here and ask you some questions. In your experience, you know how you hear stories of people and they're like, oh, my husband had a gambling problem and I had no idea. How important, and look, there's so many different facets of this conversation around women and marriages and partnerships and money and the control around money. How important do you think it is as females to know where our money's going? And I'm sure there are people out there that either don't share bank accounts or like their partner has a Playboy account. That's what I call it. Whatever. You might both have separate accounts that you can do whatever with. How important is it, Bianca, do you think, to just have a clear idea of where your money's going?
I think it comes back to the goals. So if you've got a goal there that you're both really keen to achieve, but for some reason you just can't get your way forward to start achieving that goal, then the questions need to be answered as to why. And if that means there's money being spent that you didn't know about, then obviously that becomes a problem. But I think in the context of things, it's okay for everyone to have that little secret account as long as it's not hindering the long-term plan that you guys have together. So to say you've got $100 over here a week or a month and you've got $100 over there in that account, and it doesn't matter how you spend it. If it fits in the overall plan, then that's fine. I don't want to know if you want to go have 10 coffees or if you want to have, an expensive...
A rub and tug. Oh, sorry. I couldn't resist.
It shouldn't matter, essentially, because it's not affecting or hindering the overall plan. But I do think, regardless of gender, everyone should have some sort of insight as to where all their money is going, because you're both working really hard, and you're working hard to achieve that overall goal. And if one person isn't working as hard as the other in a sense of they're spending too much, it could be a designer handbag for all we know. We just need to sit down and have that discussion of, well, what does that mean? What's the implication and the consequences of that spending to our overall plan?
Yeah, great. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be super, super granular. It's
not at all. The granular you get, the harder it becomes for people to stick to it. So this is the idea and the concept and why I don't like the term budgeting. What is the sustainable number that you guys can spend each year that allows you to obviously live your life, but also gives you the ability to save and start working towards those bigger goals in life? Because you can't spend everything. You're not going to get to those bigger goals in life. And they don't need to be massive goals. They don't need to be home upgrades and renovations. It might literally be making sure that you've got enough of a savings buffer each year in case something goes wrong. So spending every cent that comes in effectively doesn't leave you much of a buffer if something goes, if the hot water service goes, if your car blows up and needs to be fixed, you need to be able to draw some money from somewhere. So just having a rainy day account, that could be the start. Let's just build up an account over the next year that has $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000 in there so that if something goes wrong, we're okay.
And I think that it's a good note to have. So when we're looking at our budget, it's not too granular. It's a bird's eye view of giving us an understanding of what we're spending and does it align to our goal.
Correct.
And our goals don't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be, let's have a super yacht by the time we're 44. Like, let's get real. It is, rainy day money. It could be maybe we want to go out for dinner once a week or once a month with a family or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't have to be massive. So I think that's great advice, Bianca, and great to just, I guess, think about it in that way. In the meantime, if you have a topic that you'd like Bianca to dive into, if you have any questions, please slide into our DMs. Yes, we will be checking them, even though being on social media is very difficult for us.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll speak to you all next week.
See ya!